I am meeting today with Hmingi Browne, our Associate Pastor of Congregational Care here at Church of the Palms in Sarasota, Florida. Hmingi joined the staff of Church of the Palms in 2012 and since that time has established a congregational care system of shepherding deacons. And today I'm interviewing her to find out more about how she went about making that change here in our ministry. So, how do you think that the Church of the Palms identified the need to bring you on board full time and change how we were doing congregational care?
When Steve first interviewed me, he said they have a congregational care system of 18 deacons and a few Stephen ministers caring for the whole 2,500 members. Do I have any new paradigm to introduce? So I said, sure. And I said, you need 300 deacons to start with, and then you need at least 50 Stephen ministers, or if possible more. And he said, how are you going to find them here? And so I said, well, you have 2,500 people. So anyways, I also told him that they need a visitation ministry team, so people will be either elders or deacons or even not ordained who are not currently active in those ministries. Their passion is to visit the sick and the homebounds and nursing homebounds and assisted living bounds. So I also told him that in that new paradigm that I will build if I were called, it will also have home communion serving ministry team. So people whose ministry is to take communion away from the sanctuary, which is packaged and all blessed to the homebound members. So that's how we came about, and they decided to hire me, so here I am.
So once you got here, how long were you here before you really started to initiate the system of shepherding deacons? Was that something that you came and tried to start out of the gate, or were you here for a couple months? How did
Actually,
that process
I
work?
started October 1st, and Steve asked me to make my proposal in writing for the session on the fourth Monday of that month. So I presented it, and the session bitterly rejected it, because I'm now proposing to add, apart from the 18 deacons, I am proposing to add 200 and some shepherding deacons who will each have a little flock of possibly 5 to 7 families each, that they will pray for the flock by name every day and communicate quarterly, and will be there if there is a need by the. So the session didn't like it, and so I pitched it again in November. They still didn't like it. So finally, by December, they got on board.
So what do you think happened between October and December that changed that? Were there folks that you were working with here at the church, or do you think it was a matter of a new way of thinking?
I remember the first time I presented it, the session of 12 elders, they just couldn't understand. Looking back, I think they just didn't understand. Because here is a church with a history of 50, at that point, 5 years old or so, with 18 deacons. And
did they think they were taking care of everyone through those 18 people?
I think so, or I don't know. It's just, and so by November I realized I just didn't know how to explain it to them. And because I'm like more of matter-of-factly point, chop, chop, chop person, and I work best with people like NASA engineers, but they needed a different way of explaining. So actually I had a lot of help by others like Steve and even Carolyn had to put it in a form that has colors and diagrams. And actually, Martina McDonald, who no longer works here, did the diagrams and the colors. And so finally they understood in December. So it took 3 months to sell here, which is in my past churches the first time I present it, they get it and we go after it. So we wasted 3 months by my opinion.
So for your, not necessarily the session or the board, but within the congregational care ministry when you arrived, your team, were there...
there was no team.
There was no team. So there weren't necessarily people who were the first kind of adopters of this in congregational care that understood what you wanted to do and wanted to come alongside and support that?
Nobody.
Okay.
Steve understood as the head of staff, even before I was hired. So he was helping me educate the session, who had to approve it before we could even get started.
Okay.
So he helped me find a way to educate the session. Once they approved it, I actually recruited 2 lay people, Sherry Litzo and Jen Gilbert, to get on board with this and to help me. So once we got the session understood and approved, we went really fast.
Okay.
The congregation understood right away. So the first time, so this was 2012, and by 2013 March, we had our first class of shepherding deacons trained, ordained, and installed, and there were 200 and some of them. I don't remember exactly.
Wow. So from a
the
congregation, we had a lot of people that understood it and were willing to participate in it pretty quickly.
Yes. So the first class of 2016, was 104 of them.
Okay.
And so there was 2 class of, because there were, we just started something totally new. So instead of doing the whole class, we ask people if they want to try just a year, it's okay. If they want to try just 2 years, that's okay. But a whole full term is 3 years.
Okay.
So yeah, that was really fantastic.
That's cool. Very cool. So we talked about some of the challenges of being able to have this communicated effectively to session and them being able to understand it. Are there other challenges that you faced along the way in getting this implemented? I know we've worked on one this past year.
Right.
Just in keeping track of who's where, who's deacon, shepherding deacon, and
right. The biggest challenge was this congregation was so used to doing ministries. Shepherding deacon ministry is a being there ministry. You pray for your flock every single day, and you write to them in the beginning. You say, "Hi, I'm Amy, your new shepherding deacon. I'll be praying for you every day. If you need anything from the church and you want to share your joys or concern, let me know." And then, you give them your magnet for the refrigerator that tells them about your name, phone number, and email so they can reach to you anytime. And then if your flock is okay, they don't call you back. And as a shepherding deacon, you're supposed to give thanks to God that they must be having a good life. The biggest challenge is I must not be doing anything good because I don't hear back from my flock. I can't stand not hearing back from my flock. So that still is the biggest challenge.
And so what do you do to help people kind of make that transition from needing to be so hands-on to realizing that this is a part of just caring?
The best thing is some of the deacons, remember there are 200 and some of them to start with, those who got it, explaining the others was the most helpful thing.
Okay.
So then we talked about, I try to educate them to try to meet their flock, very informally under the tree during fellowship hour on Sundays, or come to Wednesday night dinner at the church. And so some of them did that and it worked. And I also encourage them, the 200 and some deacons, who too have shepherding deacons. So, because we dissected the congregation into 200 and some, and then each was given away. And so I told them, now you know how it feels, so respond to your shepherding deacon and maybe say, thank you for being my shepherding deacon. It's still a challenge, but.
And what do you feel your like top successes over the last years have been with getting this ministry?
I believe that, well, not I believe, I've been hearing people say, it's so nice to hear from the church that says, I'm praying for you. And some people are saying that it's so nice to hear from the church that doesn't ask for money. And then it's so good to know that I have my shepherding deacon praying for me every day. So I think that's excellent.
That is awesome. That's awesome. So for you, I know that we're not the first church that you've created a system like this. It kind of was your philosophy of ministry in the interview and coming here. So why is that shepherding deacon such an important part of your ministry and congregational care?
Well, I believe the church is the people, and the congregation, caring for the congregation, is really being good disciples, because we pastors come and go, the members remain here. So it helps the congregation become a real family of faith, or a community of faith. So when they care for one another, they, whether it's just praying every day for one another, or because so and so is sick now, they also help each other depending on what the occasion is. I have seen people show up at somebody's grandchild's baptism at the service, because the person whose grandchild being baptized is whether so and so's shepherding deacon or flock. And jokingly, they also call each other, oh, you're my sheep, or I'm your sheep. So it creates a community and fellowship.
That's awesome. So, were there, at the beginning, were there folks who wanted congregational care to all be done by pastors, or who didn't understand it, who have come around since then?
Actually, no.
Okay.
I don't, not to my knowledge. From my perspective, they didn't really have a lot of congregational care ministry here. There was 2 part-time retired ministers who were called a visitation pastor. So they usually visit mostly the sick in the hospital. It was also in the days the hospital called the church to say, so and so your church member is here, and they visited some nursing home members, but people in rehab had been totally left out in those days, but they are being visited now all the time. So no, to my knowledge, I don't really remember anyone against and now for.
Okay. In talking about the 2 lay folks that Sherry, Lito, and Jan Gilbert, who came alongside of you to help kind of once this ministry was approved, what were some critical things that you had them doing to equip the church for this change?
Sherry does, well, I asked the church to give me the whole list of active members, and Sherry dissected them, which we didn't do very well. Instead of getting all the full members list, I was given all the people who ever attended this place. So assuming that was a good list, Sherry Lizzo dissected it into the number of shepherding deacons we had. Then it was way too many for each person. So it was a lot of difficult work to flock people. As you know, we didn't get it done even when you came 2 years later. And Jan Gilbert actually called the shepherds when so and so is in the hospital. Jan will call their shepherding deacon and say, "Hey, one of your sheep is at Sarasota Memorial Hospital." And so the shepherding deacon can send a card or get a phone call or, offer a casserole or, and definitely pray. So the two of them have done a lot of work. And of course we had to meet, quite often to see how we're doing, which was very unorganized because the place is huge, lots of people. Thank you for organizing us. Until you came, we were totally unorganized.
How well do you feel that the change to the shepherding deacon ministry is now a part of Church of the Palms a couple years later? Do you think it's really ingrained here?
Yeah, I think so. I hope I'm not. I hope I'm accurate and not too self-assuring, because people are now saying, "How come I don't have a shepherding deacon? How come I don't hear from any shepherding deacon? Don't I have a shepherding deacon?" So at the same time, now I know all my sheep, or now, I have met my shepherding deacon. So those, news are bubbling up. So I think it's a good thing.
Awesome.
But I don't think we'll ever find 300. It's
to have active in a year.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I am settling down for about 200 now.
And that gives everyone about 10 to 10 people.
So the flock's going to get bigger, and hopefully it would be okay. Yeah.
Well, maybe if it's not as much doing and it's some being, people will understand.
But the biggest challenge here is people are older. Most people are retired. So when they move away, because their children up north want them near now, or when they move from their homes to assisted living, or they die or get sick, so we lose them from being shepherding deacons. So I think it would be really practical to hope for 200 shepherding deacons, and maybe even 150 is a good number.
Wonderful. Well, this is the first church that I have served where there's been that type of program, and every church I've served has had some congregational care issues, because it's impossible for pastoral staff to care for everyone. And even in small groups, sometimes people fall through the cracks, or they don't join, and so they're on the outsides of being cared for. So I think that it's a blessing to have here at Church of the Palms, and it's been good to get to understand that ministry more through supporting you through the summer and through this interview.
Oh my gosh, supporting me, you're organizing me. So it's really, honestly speaking, as you know, it needs to be as you put them in database, and all the shepherding deacons need to be in database. All the congregation members need to be tagged like you did in the database for us. So if something should happen, we can get to who is who's shepherding deacon very quickly. And so thank you very much for doing that. And it needs to be kept up with, which you started and you established. That's the part that neither Sherry nor Jan could do from their home. They have lives, they travel, they have vacations. So what you have put in the system it's the big missing part. Without that, it doesn't really run like a well-oiled machine. So that was great.
Good. Yeah. I'm glad. Alrighty, I think that's it for all of my questions. Thank you so much for allowing our group to interview you via video and helping us with this presentation and project for our Leading Change class. I think it's been a great change led here at Church of the Palms, and one that I hope will last in the ministry of the church for a long time. So, thank you.
Thank you for the privilege.